Hello, hello, friends! Welcome to another episode of Adventures University. Today, we're going to be talking about technology. So, technology can be anything you want it to be. It's just the application of knowledge for practical purposes, especially in industry. That can be science, it can be magic, it can be whatever. You see, when the positively aligned energies collide with the negatively charged energies, the array of magics within the contained space would cascade into a chain reaction which will compensate for the variance in the flux. Whether it's fantasy and you're talking about the technology of alchemy or of uh, magic portals or spell books, etc. Or if you're going sci-fi and you're doing spaceships or the flux capacitor or the what's a Star Trek thing? Galaxy Quest had the beryllium sphere, which powered the whatever the name of their ship was. So when I'm working on technology in my worlds, whether it be magical or scientific, I'll often look at it from the story perspective first, actually. The reason being, this can affect how much attention I need to put into the actual technology. If it's going to affect the story a lot, it revolves around an element of magic. For example, Stargate is all about the Stargates. So that technology is very important. And the significance of that technology is the whole premise of the story. So I want to flesh out how those stargates work, how the portals work, where they came from, etc. On the flip side, it could be lift technology, whether it be magical or some form of compound which allows the lifting ability. Let's say I just want something that allows for easy elevation. So it's a platform, an elevator that doesn't need a shaft, uh, a levitating platform. We'll stop there. I just made a video about rambling. I'm not going to ramble. But once you've decided on how much the technology affects the story, then it's time to think about how it affects the world. So the Stargate technology obviously affects the world quite a bit. It can affect trade, it can affect uh, transportation, it can be used for any number of things. If it's super expensive, then perhaps you just have one per city, one per world, even that kind of thing. If it's much cheaper, you could have as commonplace as in everyone's home or in every community. Like a small town may have one that people can come and go to. Think Sword Art Online, where each floor had one of the teleportation locations, and then people had their own teleportation crystals that they could use to go to either a specific one or just to that floor's town center. But somewhat less obvious can be things like the platform that you use, your shaftless elevator. Well, that could have all kinds of applications. You could say that it's limited to very specific situations. You don't have to explain it very much. But when you think about it, that lift technology is anti-gravity. Can that be applied to larger vehicles? Can it be applied to becoming like Star Wars speeders? Can it be inverted to make artificial gravity so that you can be stuck to something regardless of how much or little gravity there is or how fast this thing is moving? Can it be used to counteract movement, for example, to push in the opposite direction of where you're moving to cancel out g-forces? Circling back to how much it affects the story, how much do you need to explain this? Is this something that is easy to understand? Like a Stargate, you can pretty much gather what it is with just a little bit of showing. Someone enters Stargate and they come out in another location somewhere else. Okay, straightforward enough. But is it the story? Is that the focus of the story? Do we need to have integral knowledge of how it works so that we can then later expect it to be in a specific way or to be surprised when it acts differently? Because consistency is very important when dealing with technology and magic. So if it's particularly complex technology and is integral to the story, then you may want to find a way to explain it, whether as a beginning of story exposition, which I have a video on how not to do that, uh, or if you break it up into small chunks of showing this element, showing that element, and in a time that it doesn't matter as much, so that when it becomes more relevant, people have that basic idea of its function, whether it be magic, technology, science, etc. That's basically what I have for you today. Technology is one of those things where it's very integral to your world and your story. Like, even if it's not the focus of the story, knowing how the differences in your world, technologically wise, affects the world and how people do things, it isn't something that you can just say, well, if you do this, you do that. If you do this, you do that. The levitation technology, your lifted plate, you could say that it only works with light things. It's not big enough to affect vehicles and things like that. In that aspect, it wouldn't probably change a lot. It would perhaps replace scaffolding so that it could lift a person or two, maybe a few supplies. But uh, aside from that, it wouldn't do a lot of world-changing differences. On the other hand, if you had it be a thing that is integral to the world, it's widely available, then it could affect trade economies. It could make transportation much more inexpensive. It can make transportation to out of the planet, off planet technology a lot more accessible, perhaps even interstellar, depending on how uh, advanced it is. But you can go as far or as limited as you want to. Again, it's kind of dependent on how you want it to fit into the story. And that affects how much time you have to put into applying that to your world yourself. And that's where we're actually going to end today. So I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope that you got something out of it. Let me know in the comments down below if there is a technology that you have been you've had jumping around in your mind that you've either applied to a story, you've seen in a story, but you wanted to apply differently in a setting, something that you want to apply to something. I want to give a massive shout out to my patrons over at Patreon, who allow me to be able to do this. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, go to patreon.com/Adventures University. I have multiple tiers starting at $1. Join the Discord community, which I am working on revamping my Discord so that it is actually usable. uh, I also want to thank those of you who are subscribed. If you aren't, go ahead and subscribe and hit that like button and notification bell so that you can hear when more videos come up. So until next time, have fun.